Okay, we are back for Magic Knight Rayearth with all anime cutscenes, because that's what you donated for. This is a working designs game, much like the Lunar series, and it has lots of anime in it. So enjoy the run, everyone. Voila, good luck, and don't forget anime!
Yes. So this is Magic Knight Rayearth, the very last game released for the Sega Saturn in the United States, based off anime and manga by Clamp. We'll just get started. Donation incentive was met to not skip any anime cutscenes. While we won't be skipping any that we come across, there are a couple that are missed due to a skip that was found early on in the game. I'm ready to count down. Start in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and go.
This land, this place, the dark tide must be quelled. I must call them.
So we start out in Tokyo Tower as Hikaru. Normally we're supposed to go to the top of Tokyo Tower and initiate a cutscene where we chase our dog around and meet Fu and Umi, the other two characters of our merry band of magical girls. But thanks to some task effort, we can actually skip the first 35 minutes or so of the game by relying on this NPC over here to push us into a wall. But the only downside is we just have to wait for the NPC to move around. So basically what happens is if she's on the same vertical slice as us and pushes us into a corner, it only works if you get pushed into a bottom corner, or get pushed downwards. If you get pushed in any other direction, you'll just get pushed down instead of any other direction. So currently the NPC is being a little trolly. But basically, the story is we get transported to a magical world called Sephiroth, and the princess has been kidnapped. And with the last of her magic, she summons us to save Sephiroth. Let's see. Can we wiggle over? Nope. So you can kind of guide the NPCs as well. So I guess I'm going to have to do that since she's being very mean. Nope. It was so close. There we go. Alright, so now we're out of bounds. And for some reason, there's a damage plane. So basically, we go up to the top of the screen and then hold up right. And suddenly we start losing health for no reason. Like, we haven't figured out why. There's just no way to see what's up there. And technically, we're only supposed to be able to play as Hikaru right now, but for some reason, we can swap. The other two girls start appearing as we lose health. So, the game doesn't know what to do if you die in a town, like any town, I found out earlier. So, when you die in a town, it sends you to Polyzoo Village, which skips the opening story, which is like a lot of long cutscenes, and a tutorial area. The only downside is that since we skip the tutorial area, we skip our first level up of the game. This game has like predetermined level ups. And our first level up lets us do charged attacks and gives us an extra point of health and mana. So now we're going to go see the great magician of Polyzoo. I can't remember his name. But basically he erected a barrier to keep out the monsters from a cave. Lucino, that's his name. So we have to go talk to him. He tells us how great he is. And now we're going to go talk to the mayor to see what we can do to help, since we're on our journey to become the magical knight, or the magic knights destined to save Sephiroth. And so, and we were told in one of the long cutscenes that we need to nurture our power that we were given. So we believe that entails helping people. And Lucino, he wants none of that. He doesn't want us to undo his work, because he wants to stay the hero of the town. But we're going to go do that anyways. So we're going to enter our first dungeon, which is more or less an actual tutorial dungeon, because it teaches you about basic combat, basic block pushing. And you're going to see me jump into screen transitions a lot. Basically, you retain your momentum that you build up, and you can use that to get an early running start, because basically you have to walk in a straight line for a little bit before you can run. And I don't really need to do it all that often, but it just it's good habit for me to build up. So basically, he's putting up blocks and doing everything he can to stymie your progress. I'm going to grab a potion in the next area as like a backup just in case. Basically, there's 5 exits, 4 of them are traps, and 1 of them actually has something that we want. And see, he's the guy that's like blocking our paths as much as he can. But the first dungeon is just basically block pushing and that sort of thing. And we can swap through each 3 characters as much as we want. There's no real downside to it. Only the character you're active as is has an active hitbox. And each girl is unique. They each have different weapons types, different damage values, different magic. And also, if you see under the character portraits, it's black under there. Normally that's supposed to be where our first spell is that we learn. But since we skipped the cutscenes to learn any spells, it just shows as black. But we do have those. We still have access to those spells. But until we learn our second tier spell, those just stay black. Because the game doesn't know how to handle what just happened. So if you're familiar with working designs, you're familiar with their breed of localizations, where they tend to make games more difficult. And they also do some quality of life stuff. Like with this game, they fixed a lot of crashing bugs present in the Japanese version, reduced some lag. But in turn, they made monsters generally hit more or move faster, or hit harder or move faster. Bosses also either have more HP or they do more damage. And just across the board, they made the game more difficult, but they also made the game a lot faster for a speedrun's perspective. Basically, there's a lot less voice acting because you can't skip voice-acted lines. And they also let you skip cutscenes, which is fantastic. So, right there is the healing fountain that you can go to heal, but our buddy Lukino decided to drink it all up so that we have to go without. And he just bounces off. So here, you're supposed to take the platform to get across, but we're just gonna jump across there. And now we're gonna find our first mirror, which each mirror you visit lets you learn a new spell. Normally, in a normal playthrough, you're supposed to learn 3 spells for each character, but we're gonna skip one for Fu later on, and you'll see when it comes up. So I'm gonna hit him. That's fine. Switch to Fu. See, now she has an icon there that we learn a new spell. We have her healing spell and a wind spell that is screen wide. Okay, dang. So sometimes that guy will just randomly despawn. And the reason we switch to Fu now is for this little part right here. We need her wind magic to blow him away, because he's just fanning us away. And so now he's gonna say he's gonna brave the giant monster at the end of this cave, but now he's too chicken. So we're gonna do his job for him. Heal up. Switch to Umi. Now for this fight, it doesn't matter which character I am, because all their magic does the same damage at this point in the game. Later on, eventually that'll change as we learn more powerful magic for Umi and Hikaru. But we're gonna do something called a magic glitch. Basically, if you character swap and cast a spell on the same frame, you'll cast the spell without wasting the mana of the character you swap to. So basically, it effectively gives us infinite mana to work with. But sometimes it's finicky whether or not it decides to work. There we go. Come on. Despite messing it up a few times, it's still way faster because we don't have our charged attack. There we go. And our spells are, by and large, our most powerful thing, most powerful damage in the game. And it just saves so much time in doing this fight over than doing it the normal way, especially without charge attacks. Because you do like almost no damage without a charge attack. And then as we level up as well, our weapons like change in the way they attack as well. Like Umi's range gets longer. Oops. There we go. So like sometimes it can just be tricky. This is like a spider crab of sorts. It's like named Arachnadia or something like that. Come on. Oh, didn't mean to do that. Oh, it was dead anyways. Perfect. So first boss down. He's not really all that challenging. They even tell you like how to avoid its attacks at the beginning. So now Lucino comes in, makes an apology. So he's like, so sorry for like stopping us and all that stuff. And we're gonna give him credit anyways because it's for some reason it's the nice thing to do. So we're gonna give him credit for something he didn't do. It makes him happy. The rest of the town's happy. They don't really care. The monster's gone. And we get our first level up of the game. Well, our first level up that we see in this run. Because there's a scene earlier where all three girls level up. Basically getting their Scudo weapons, it's called. And they're just like magical weapons that grow with the user. But now Hikaru becomes the most powerful basic attacks. Because now she has access to a charge attack and she's also one level higher. And now we got this mysterious guy who's complaining about us killing his spider crab. So for about half of the game, we don't have access to a way to run quickly. We have to build up speed and then we can run. So now we're going to our next town. It's called Taflon by the Sea, because town's called Taflon and they're by the sea. And they're having an issue with whirlpools that's preventing us from continuing forward. Also, we don't know how to swim. So we're going to have to figure out how to swim to get across. Because if we jump into the water now, it just ejects us from it. Like as if we fell into a pit. Except that we don't take damage. So we got to find someone who's going to be willing to teach us how to swim. So first we got to go to this house over here, talk to this fella. He tells us about a guy named Cultist who can teach us how to swim. But he disappeared from town. Because apparently Cultist is like the best swimmer ever and also an amazing fisherman. But he left under mysterious circumstances. And we're going to find out exactly why he left. And we're going to talk to this little girl named Sarah. And she has a little pink dragon pet named Jiminy. And apparently the town hates Jiminy because he's ugly. But the reason Cultist left is that he couldn't save Sarah's previous pet from drowning, and he feels really bad about it, so he left town because he felt that he was worthless and useless. And we're gonna insult him to tell him that he's not useless and worthless, that he's actually still has a chance at being a good guy and helping others and all that stuff. But we're gonna do it in the meanest way possible. With Umi telling him off. So basically, if you talk to him without talking to that guy in the house on the right, he just says, "Leave me alone." But Umi's basically saying he's too busy sulking. He doesn't want to help us. And so now we're going to try to find our own way to swim. But luckily, that was the pep talk that Cultist needed. So now we're going to go back to Taflon. And then, oh yeah, I press the Y button and you can fast travel on the world map. It's wonderful. The only downside is that the load times are fairly lengthy, but, you know, it's a CD game. Not a whole lot you can expect from it. So now we're going to go see Sarah again and find that Cultist is there talking to her. Caltis is like surprised that she's happy and she's found a new pet and she's moved on. And he goes to apologize, but she's like, no, don't apologize, it's not your fault. And now Caltis is like, hey, what are you girls doing eavesdropping? And so now he's going to be a nice guy, thank us, and he's going to grab us by the scruff of our necks and toss us into the water. And somehow we're going to learn how to swim from just that. It's wonderful. And as you see, Hikaru grows cat ears whenever she's being grabbed. So now we're going to learn the Roaring Rapid Wave Cut. That's quite the tongue twister. And poor Fu, she still doesn't understand the concept of swimming, so we just give her a flotation device.
Clef.
And Precious. Mysterious Cipher Lecture number 2.
And so, you notice how that says number 2. Basically, the first one is teaching us how to save the game, and we skip that. Because that's part of the 35 minutes of the game we skip.
Now they can journey to the ice cave on the island to the north.
By pressing the attack button.
Oh yeah, and swimming is like kind of silly in this game. Like you have to mash the attack button to move forward in the water.
Okay, that's it.
But
we hope you
at
enjoy
least
the game.
it's not like the faster you mash, the faster you go. Like there is a cap on it, so it's not like you're just like hitting the button as hard as you can. So now we can finally swim and solve the problem of the whirlpools. And we get treated to some funky music. And so we're gonna try to like have the whirlpools ride us as we go around the map to avoid some areas where you can get stuck. So basically, I'm just following a specific path that allows me to pull a lot of speed from these whirlpools. Get pulled down here, and then up again, and I'm just using like these beautiful cues. And now we can enter the next dungeon, the Eternal Ice Cave. As you can see in a moment that it's completely frozen over. And so now in this dungeon we're going to heavily rely on Hikaru for her magic to melt ice cubes. So despite not having her spell, we can still cast her magic. What we used to do is farm extra mana to clear more blocks, since we have to clear extra blocks anyways. But thanks to the magic glitch, we can just do that anyways. So a moving block puzzle with these ice blocks. Basically, the ice blocks keep going until they hit a solid object of some sort. And we're going to just do that to hit all the switches. Ooh, that guy's in a bad place. So sometimes these guys will spawn in very favorable places. Ouch. He's chasing me! And we learn Hikaru's second spell, Flaming Shock. Basically, it's an area of effect attack that summons bolts of fire. And we're gonna need that. And this dungeon's kind of rough. You don't want any character to die, because then you basically have to exit the dungeon and heal up. There's like no fountain or any way to revive characters aside from using a potion. Okay, there we go. So this spell costs 3 mana to use normally, and we can just cast it for free. So now I'm switched to Fu because we're gonna need her arrow attack soon. Build up a little running speed. So like when you run around, your movement gets really loose. So I'm gonna shoot that switch over there, and then just go past these. Nice. And now in this room we have to clear all the enemies in order to open the doorway. So so I can just use magic, because it kills them in one hit, otherwise they take around 2 or 3 hits, depending. And then our final room before the boss area. Another switch puzzle. Just push those on there. And like, all the puzzles in this game are fairly easy. Maybe they take a little bit of trial and error, but for the most part they're just one and done. And now we finally reached our destination. The floor is gonna break under us, and we're gonna find our first machine. Basically, part of the story is we have to find 3 machines to help defeat the evil Zagot who has kidnapped the princess. And he has hidden his castle in a shroud of magic. And the only way to disrupt that magic is getting all 3 machines and summoning them at the same time. And so we can find Umi's machine, Saris. And oh yeah, our little buddy Makona, apparently he joins us in the journey. Basically, he acts as a way to save the game. You can save anywhere, which is nice. And he also acts as a way as a communication with Clef, who is the guy who helped guide us in this world at the start, and he gets turned into stone. I know there's a lot of important story that gets missed for the sake of going fast. But from what I know is that this game follows about 2/3 of the first season of the anime, like the first third and the second and the last third. Basically, the middle part of this game is a completely original story. Probably to just fit a game narrative, for all I know, because I personally haven't seen the anime or read the manga, but I hear they're good. So now we get to hear some wing flapping, because poor Jiminy gets turned into a monster due to Ascot's magic, and now we gotta take him down. So now we're going to lead him over to the right side of the map. Basically, if there's a safe spot where we can just chill out and cast our magic. So normally you can't hit him in the air, but with magic, like, it ignores height. But just by moving over here in general, we can stay safe. There we go. And thankfully, like, this spell is like fairly lengthy, but the damage it does is immense. And it also just basically lasts his length of invincibility frames. Also, something you normally can't do is you can't normally attack him while he's doing that, like if you're using your basic attack, but with spells you can attack him just fine. Oh, he was already dead. Alright, so now poor Jiminy's dead. He couldn't handle that form for much longer, and we just exacerbated the problem. But we didn't want to kill him. But we had no choice. It was us or him. So basically, Ascot is one of Zagot's underlings, and I would say he has the most prominent role in the game. So now we get a cutscene between Caltus and Sarah. She's real sad.
Sorry. We really did try our best to save your...
Aww. So for those uninitiated, this story has a lot of sadness and heartbreak. Basically, we go around killing everybody. But Sarah ends up happy after this cutscene coming up, where we get our first ancient machine, which is a giant water serpent. and just slides on up. Now, we can't exactly bring around a giant water serpent with us, so it's gonna just transform into pure energy and go inside a pendant on the girls' chests. Oh yeah, giant robots. So these ancient machines are actually giant Gundams of sorts. So now we got our first giant robot. And we also get our first introduction to Zagat and his crew. Normally we see him much earlier in the game, but every time it goes to a scene with Zagat, it plays this cutscene. And we also get our first taste of voice acting from the characters that's not a
Pity that you've returned.
tutorial.
Inova, wait!
And now we get introduced to Ascot's sister, Caldina.
I think I've earned a shot at doing away with those 3 brats. And then, after I return victorious, we can talk about Ascot.
It would please me if you were to end this circus. You're free to try.
You won't be disappointed.
Oh yeah, so Alcyone there, that's encased in crystal. Basically, she failed in an attempt to kill us as soon as we got to Sephiroth, and for her failure, she gets encased in crystal. But she eventually breaks out, so not all hope is lost for her, but she becomes a real nuisance. So now we're finally free to do what we want. Sarah's walking around town, she's real happy now. And now we can finally go to our next town, the ice village of Rosen, which has unfortunately become a permanent land of ice due to a volcano eruption that has changed the climate of the area. Now, when we first started the game, we were given the clues volcano, sea, and sky to find all the 3 giant machines. So we're going this way because there's a volcano over here, but spoilers, it's not the volcano we're looking for. But we're going to solve our own mystery here. Basically, Caldina is doing her magic dance to entrance and hypnotize all the men of the town. Just because she wants to dig in the caves to see if she can find the giant machine before we do. But luckily for us, it's not here. So I'm going to switch to Fu here. Basically, there's a cutscene coming up where she'll be a little closer to where we want to go when we get out of the cutscene. And now we're going to meet Fario, who actually we met earlier. Of course, we didn't see him. And Fu is fallen in love with him, and she doesn't want to admit that. And she's pretty pissed off that he's playing the flute for all these women, when in actuality she's doing it to prevent Caldina from hypnotizing the entire town. So, as part of a way to move the plot forward, we go stay at inns. And during the night, a lot of things are going to happen. Basically, all the men of the town have been hypnotized and have been going out every night, digging a cave to find, or digging tunnels to find the giant robot. And for whatever reason, the innkeeper decided to wake us up and ask us for help.
Hey, just a quick donation here.
Oh, go for it.
We got $15 from Rebarbalut. No message, but Rebarbalut will be racing. Synth Pop is back tomorrow in the Magic of Scheherazade tomorrow afternoon.
Nice.
And a plug in there too. We only got 1 player name for Magic of Scheherazade. There's still a donation incentives for 1 more name tomorrow. Hey, there's Synth Pop. Hey.
Alright, so now we're going to go into the dungeon and we're gonna find Faria waiting outside for us. And he offers his help, but we're like, no thanks. We're gonna tell him off, and now Fu is feeling all apologetic. So now we're gonna go inside and tell him we're sorry. So this dungeon is probably one of my favorite casually, because basically it's one giant room with a lot of branching paths to explore. Basically, there's health upgrades, mana upgrades. There's these things called rainbow amulets that if you collect all, I believe, 56, you can unlock some extra stuff as well. But since we want to go fast, we don't collect those, and there's a specific path we go. So we go over here, go down, and then we swim in the water because we want to learn Umi's next spell, which is actually a really useful spell. It'll basically let us put out torches. Specifically, put out multiple torches at once. Because we need that to basically as a way to get to the boss of this area. And it turns out it's a really useful spell too. It does a good chunk of damage, and for at least me personally, it's one of the easiest to do the magic glitch with. And I'm not sure why, because like her third tier spell is exactly the same as her second tier, just a different animation. But for whatever reason, I had more difficulty pulling it off with that. So I'm going to switch to Umi here, because we're going to use her magic to kill an enemy that's in the way. Because for whatever reason, puzzle interactions, like putting out the torches, don't work if there's an enemy on the screen. It'll prioritize that over the hitbox of the puzzle. So 2 magic casts will just take care of this dude. And then I'm going to grab this to refill her mana, because it's a lot more consistent than having to do the magic glitch. And basically just by taking care of those, it opens up the path to where we want to go. I'm gonna refresh and enter the boss fight. So this boss fight's pretty weird. Basically, we're only on this little square platform and the boss is on the other side of the screen. They expect you to use Fu to defeat the boss, and in addition to magic, because Fu has the only one with the ranged attack, but currently we don't have Fu's upgraded attack, so she can't do her homing arrows. And that makes this fight much more difficult if you don't have that. But thanks to the magic glitch, we can just take care of her that way. Okay. So far, so good. I'll just do that. As long as I'm casting spells, it's all good. Whoops. And as you can see, enemies, they turn red when they're almost dead. See, very easy fight when you can just cast your strongest magics. And now we come to apologize to Fario. He finds out we're the Magic Knights, because he didn't believe that we were before. And now Fu's finally upgraded to level 2, I think. I forget, like, if you start at level 0 or not. And so now we've taken care of Caldina. She's not dead, she just got away. And now we get treated to another one of these cutscenes. You'll get familiar with this cutscene. It's one you see often. Because basically, Working Design saw it fit that the only voice acting aside from the intro and the cutscenes are sequences with Zagat.
It seems my little pet Alcyon has vanished.
So Alcyon has gotten away, who we were not introduced to. Basically, she's one of Zagat's servants and also in love with Zagat. So of course she'll do anything he says. So now we've taken care of Caldina, but we can't continue on. Basically, there's a tunnel that leads to the next town, but the volcano eruption has blocked the entrance. So we're gonna see if we can talk to the innkeep if there's anyone that can help us. And it turns out there's a fellow named Rafarga in town who can help us. He lives up in the northeast of this town. And he's a very interesting fella. He doesn't have a door in front of his house, but he just lets the ice freeze over and counts that as a door. And just whenever he wants to get in or out, he just bashes right on through.
Well, what do we have here? My name is Rafarga. Is there something I can do for you?
And basically his story is he used to be the captain of the royal guard for the princess. And her name is Princess Emerald. I don't think I mentioned that earlier. And now he's going to teach us how to do the pulverizing bash to break weak walls. And we're going to be at it all day, and we just can't do it. So if you've ever played the Japanese version of this game, he basically goes mura 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 every time he tells us to like dash into it. So we can't get it. He lets us sleep on his massive bed for the night, and he just decides to chill outside. And Hikaru, she can't sleep, so she goes outside for a heart-to-heart talk with Rafarga. And turns out we've renewed the vigor of Rafarga, who had lost all hope after he couldn't save the princess from Zagat. It's a big bed. But so yeah, basically he lost his will to live, and now he's all good. And now we hear Umi screaming, and we believe that she's in danger. And it turns out there's just a bug in the bed. And we find out that Hikaru did the pulverizing bash technique. And now we get our next tutorial.
Mysterious Sephiroth Lecture number 3. You've just mastered the skill known as the pulverizing bash.
Indeed. By running to increase your speed, the power to throw yourselves increases as well. You can destroy places with weak foundations or small cracks with incredible ease.
But be sure to give yourself plenty of room to run, so you can increase your speed.
That's
Oh
right.
yeah, the blonde girl, her name is
Start running and then boom.
That's
Precia,
all for
that's
today,
it.
kids. We'll let you get back to your game.
Basically, she gives us our weapons at the beginning of the game.
Boom.
Boom! Yeah, the guy who plays Clef actually, like, fist bumps his hand to make the sound of it when he says boom. Which I thought was interesting. Because it's, like, pretty audible. Like, when I first heard it, I thought he was just, like, snapping his fingers, or it was, like a pop on the audio, but it turns out it's just actually him, fist bumping his hand. So now we can get running speed there. And now we can go inside the volcano. Basically, it just acts as a passageway to where we want to get next. And this is a pretty, nothing special about it. We do some damage, we take some damage here to get through some fireballs, but that's about it, really. It's just mostly just running around and platforming. And we want to avoid the lava because they hurt a lot in the US version. But the US version is by far the fastest version, because in the Japanese version every single line is voice acted. And which means you can't skip any of the dialogue. So now I switch characters because I don't want Hikaru to die. Because dying just wastes a lot of time. It's like there's no punishment for her dying because I still have like 2 characters that I can work with. Ow. But see, like, it just everything stops for a moment while the death is handled. And then the character just floats around as she can't do anything. So the lava monster thankfully can't get to us. That was bad. Alright. So things got a little scary. Oops. I'm gonna use the health potion I picked up. I didn't really want to use it. I basically picked this up at the beginning of the first dungeon. So just like as a just-in-case kind of thing. If I ever need it, and I need it here. Because I don't think I can make it through without taking any damage, and I don't want to have to repeat this section. Because like there's these fireballs here that just chase you around. And now we're finally going to exit the volcano. And it turns out the town we entered is on fire. So now we've entered the town of, I think it's called IA or something like that. It's like written weird in the English version, and I don't think they ever pronounce it in the Japanese version. Like, I know they have it written down, but I just can't remember it. So, basically... basically in the story, a boy gets kidnapped and tossed in this mansion that's on fire, and it turns out Alcyon's the one that caused it, and now we gotta go rescue the boy. And for whatever reason, he's behind 3 locked doors of different key colors, and we gotta find all 3 keys to get to the boss. So first we get the blue key, which lets us get the red key, which then lets us get the green key. Okay. Just gonna get rid of these. So they're basically, these fire rats are kind of annoying. They don't do much damage, but they move really fast. And the game has a set path that it wants you to follow. Okay. Oh, come on. Okay, now we can get the final key, which basically goes back in the room we were just in. Because it was locked behind its own door. Like, casually when you see that, it looks kind of frustrating, and then eventually you find out there's a hole you can fall down to get in there. Okay. Alright, now we got all 3 keys, and we can go to the boss. See, change my magic there. Basically, I'm just prepping my spells, because the boss has 2 phases. The first phase is like 3 fire skulls. And the second phase, those 3 fire skulls turn into 1 giant fire skull. And it's casually, it's one of the toughest fights in the game. And in speedrun, it's pretty tough too. But if you have enough magic to cast, you can kill it pretty easily. Because basically, the first phase takes 2 spell casts of Umi's with her water tornado. And the second phase takes 4 casts, where normally he has a lot of health. So now we just insult Caldina and take her down. Call her a skank. Which is mean, but, you know, gets the point across. There we go. So I wish I had still had my potion, but, you know, you work with what you got. And this guy hurts a lot, too. So we're just gonna try to stay away from him. Alright, and that fight went pretty well. What's funny, there's a little glitch that can happen. If there's a fireball right where we spawn, we'll take damage, and you can actually die from that, but it'll still count the fight as completed, but you have to go back and watch the cutscene again for it to count as finished. And now the boy is saved, and the magical fire has been put out. And if we talk to the mother after we save the boy, we can actually get a rainbow amulet, a red one, I think. But don't need that. Because if you get all the rainbow amulets, you can unlock some extra stuff. Like a sound test and, that's what I'm looking for. Outtakes of the voice actors. And then there's like also some other stuff you can unlock, like some really annoying shoes that make noises every time you take a step.
Without your permission, but lost to those three in your name. It is nothing short of a complete disgrace, my lord.
And then you can also get a Nova's Diary, which is like fully voice acted, and it's a pretty hilarious read.
Prepared to die, master.
Charming, but unnecessary for now, Inova. Just continue to monitor her activities.
As you wish, my lord.
But basically, Working Design saw fit to voice act the entirety of the diaries that each of the girls write. Basically, the girls each write a diary that details their experiences from their point of view up to the where you are at in the story in the game. But they decided they didn't want to voice act the entirety of the game, even though there was plenty of room on the disc. They stated that there wasn't enough room on the disc, but what's really funny is that there is enough room, and the entirety of the Japanese voice acting is on the disc as well. And there's still a lot of space, which is just, you know, Working Design did a lot of stuff like that. They always say, like they have little blurbs in their manuals about things they changed for the game, or bug fixes they did, but in a lot of cases they didn't really do a whole lot. They just say they did a lot of stuff. It's hard to say if it was badly compiled. I think they were just mainly just saying things because they didn't want to do the extra work. Because they actually spent a long time on this game. It was supposed to be an early Saturn release, because it came out like in 1995 in Japan, but it ended up becoming the very last release in the US. And the reason for that was because the source code was partially lost when they went to go get it. No, it was not the last ever Saturn game. Saturn games were released in Japan up until like 2000, 2001. So now we meet Abner, who can run. That's basically his only redeeming trait, is that he can run. And Umi decides to get into a race with him. Basically, if we win the race, he'll teach us how to run like he does. And if we lose, we're supposed to go on a date with him, but of course, Umi being Umi, we welch on that date. It turns out Umi's not that great of a runner. And Abner is just going to show off. So now we're going to try to go to where we need to go without learning his technique for running. And it requires going there and then basically going to the entrance to the dungeon only to find out we can't go in despite fully being able to. It's kind of weird how they set it up like that. So basically this dungeon is just one long path, or it's not this dungeon, this, I guess it's like a pre-dungeon. It's just basically one long pathway where we need to build up running speed in order to break these breakable walls. And this dungeon has like a theme around that. So we're going to go all the way up here, and we're going to grab this mana upgrade. It's not really necessary to get, but it makes it so that we don't have to rely on one of her casts in the late game to be a magic swap cast. Because we're going to get a spell for her in the end of the game that costs 10 mana to use, and if we don't grab this, we only have 9 mana by that point in the game. And so basically we can't go in, but the, whoops, meant to cast a different spell. Okay, so now we build up running speed again, and we have to run all the way back. Sadly, since this is considered an outdoor area, we can't use fast travel. So we gotta run all the way back, talk to Abner. He decides that he can do this himself, that he doesn't need us. He doesn't need to teach us how to run. And then all hope is lost. We can no longer continue in the game. But in reality, one of the children he taught how to run offers to teach us. And then we learn how to run on command. Basically, if you're holding a direction and press the X button, you'll like go into like a running animation but in place. And then when you let go, you can just automatically run. And it just is so useful. It's one of the most useful things you learn. And then you can combine that with the pulverizing bash to get where you need to go. And I don't think this kid ever is like given a name. He just offers to help us. And thanks to him, we learn how to run in place. So this is the final mysterious lecture that we get from these guys.
Have learned the technique known as the instant dash.
Yes, this skill allows the girls to sprint full speed without the need for a running start. To use it, simply press your dash button and then begin running as you let go.
The instant dash is especially useful when paired with the pulverizing bash.
Yes, by using both together, you can crash through weak walls without a runway.
Now you can lay out the boom in places where it wasn't previously possible to do so.
Oh, sure, now she's using my lines.
Anyway, we'll let you get back to your game now. Have fun!
So long, everyone!
And that's the last time we see one of these cutscenes with those two. So now we can just run and wherever we want to go. And recently a skip was found for this dungeon that basically trivializes it to just doing the skip and going to the top of the dungeon. Basically, the dungeon's a giant tree. We only get one shot at doing it in a run, so hopefully I can get it. Otherwise, you get to see my favorite dungeon in the game. And the main reason I like it is that there's just a lot of fun movement. So now we can just run wherever we want without having to build up speed. But if at all possible, we still try to jump into screen transitions just to keep the movement. The only time that doesn't work is if you're going to a new area. Like how we just went from the city to here. So switch to her. And now we can enter here. And so hopefully we can get the skip, because it's a really cool skip that we do. Basically, there's a cutscene that we jump into, and if we jump into it, we get put out of bounds when the cutscene ends. It's very interesting. And then we use that to our advantage, just to go straight to the top of the tree instead of having to go through the entirety of the dungeon. It saves a significant amount of time. So wait for that. Yeah. So we switched to Fu here just to kill that guy right there. And now hopefully we can get to the skip. Nope, didn't get it. So basically you can't jump while you're going up the vine, but if you jump on the frame of you getting off the vine, you get put on top of the the entrance there and allows us just to walk out of bounds. But sadly, we didn't get the skip. So now we have to do the dungeon normally, which isn't a bad thing. Like I said, I really like this dungeon. Oops, no. Wrong entrance. You can't jump into those pits, I guess. So, like, that skip save is about, like, 2.5 minutes. It's a big skip, but, let's see. Oh, right, since we didn't get the skip, I forgot about that. Okay, I remember now. So I haven't done this dungeon normally in a while, so I forgot about that. Basically, what we're supposed to do is go to the top here on this side, and basically there's one of those vines inside that's blocking a path for us that we have to open up. So like an option to do if you miss that skip is to like save before when you enter the dungeon, but the time it takes to reload a save is far longer than it is just to do the dungeon normally. And there we go. Excellent. And there's a mon upgrade there that we just skipped. Let's see, and I'm gonna grab the potion here since I'm going this way anyways. It might come in handy. Basically, we clear this room of enemies. I knew that didn't get that one. Okay, there we go. And it opens up this potion chest for us with a red potion. So basically there's a red potion and a blue potion. Red potion refills both your mana and HP and revives any dead characters. The blue potion just revives your mana. Okay, jump across here, and we're almost to the top actually. So if we had done it right, we would have been off bounds off to the left, and would have just gotten to the top just by walking up the left side of the screen here. And then when we reach the top, it would just play this cutscene and put us back in bounds. So now we reach the top, we find Abner, and Alcyone has taken him out. Oh yeah, and the fellow following us, that's Ascot, who has disguised himself as a boy named Alto, and who's come to accompany us on this mission. There we go. And so now we're going to go deal with Alcyone, who decided to get a party of her own. So this fight is a uniquely interesting fight. Basically, she is similar to us, where each of the 3 people in her party function differently. In the US version, just by her running into you, she can one-shot you. So we're going to try to take out Alcyone first, because we want her dead the quickest, she's usually the most lethal. And you can basically stun lock her into place. Basically, we just wait for her... Whoops. There we go. We basically wait for her invincibility frames to run out at a certain point, and just chain her damage so she can't switch. Although sometimes she does anyway, sadly. And then so basically the butterfly is one we want to prevent from doing any healing. If the butterfly heals, it heals for quite a bit. If you see the animation or hear the noise at all, it means that the heal went off. Which just makes this fight much more difficult. There we go. There we go. So the butterfly luckily can't heal itself, but it will heal everybody else. There we go. And so now this like scorpion lobster thing basically has invincibility frames until it does an attack, and we can kind of bait out an attack like that. There we go. And so with the infinite magic glitch, we can just deal with it. And ideally, we want the butterfly to die quickly so that it won't heal the lobster anymore. Oh, I think he's a little too far off screen. Yep. So sometimes his invincibility frames reset, and I'm not sure why. Because normally they only reset if he attacks. And you kind of have to bait his attack, too. Oh, dang. Okay, well, it'll be dead soon. I kind of wasted my ability to do magic, but that's fine. And it's dead anyway, so it worked out perfectly. And so the whole reason we came up here was to get the very last leaf on the Tree of Life, which is dead. And it's dead because the princess is gone. Basically, the princess's magic was so powerful that it sustained the entirety of Sephiroth. And Sephiroth is slowly going into chaos because the princess is kidnapped. And so now we got our leaf, which makes the magical elixir that'll cure everybody in town that's sick. And now we're treated to another cutscene with Zagot. It's what plants crave.
Ascot, what's the meaning of
So now
this?
Caldina is covering for Ascot going rogue.
Well, in order to figure out the girl's weaknesses, I'm, spying on them.
Do you expect us to believe that pathetic lie?
Lie? Why, Innova, I'm shocked and hurt that you would even think such a dreadful thing.
Don't trouble yourself, Innova. If she is shading the truth, I shall soon know it.
As you desire, my lord.
So for whatever reason, Zagot is not patient with Alcyone, but he's patient with everyone else.
Spying?
Like with Alcyone, the first mistake, Case and Crystal. Everyone else, they get extra chances.
What? Who's there?
I'm not so certain. If I didn't know better, I'd say Ascot looked like he was enjoying himself.
Alcyone! Don't be ridiculous. Ascot's not a traitor. He'd never do such a thing. And besides, what about you? You've got some nerve showing your sorry face around here. Huh. If I just happened
So now
to tell
Alcyone and
Zagat
Caldina
about
are
your
going to
little visit,
conspire to work
it's
together
the end of your party for
to
sure.
take us out.
Perhaps, but I don't think now is the best time for you to go running to Zagat either.
Enough! I can do without your sarcasm right now.
Why are you treating me as an adversary? Can't you see we're in this together, friend?
Together? You make me sick. Don't insult my intelligence, you scheming hag.
Now, Caldina. No need to rip a seam. You see, I've quite a scoop for you.
Oh, really? I'm all ears.
If we head off the Magic Knight wannabes at their next stop,
Got it!
So Alcyon's, clearly up to something. And she's baiting Caldina into it. And now, once again, we give the credit to someone else. So we give the leaf to Abner, who gives it to Athena, which is the red-eyed lady we talked about earlier. And for whatever reason, Umi levels up from that. Alright, now we're on to our next dungeon, which is my least favorite dungeon. It's like... It's not a bad dungeon by any means, it's just... uninteresting, I guess, would be the way to describe it. And it also has a couple of frustrating switch puzzles where you have to bait enemies onto the switches. And there's this one mantis enemy that just does not cooperate at all. So hopefully it'll cooperate today. Because basically we have to lure it onto a switch, and sometimes it just doesn't want to go. Let's see, let's change my magic there. And then we'll also learn Umi's final spell, which is exactly the same as her second spell. The only difference is that it can defeat invincible enemies. And this dungeon is the only place with invincible enemies. So it's basically a spell for the sake of solving a dungeon-specific puzzle. Because for all intents and purposes, it's exactly the same as their level 2 spell. Damage, I think the animations are about the same as well. And luckily we know how to swim, so falling into the foot of a waterfall isn't so bad. So basically the entirety is, or most of this dungeon is going to be block pushing. So basically we just got to push boxes onto switches to open doors. And sometimes you can get like anchored to a block for some reason. I know it's only like briefly that it happens. And then these balls are like kind of weird, and like sometimes you have to be positioned specifically on them when you want to push them on the side. But so far it's going pretty well. And then we're gonna have to be pushing these ones in a specific order because they're like the ice blocks in the ice dungeon, where they'll keep moving until they hit something that stops them. So we just have to push them in a specific way so that we can hit all 4 switches. Switch. Damn. So now we need to do that once again. And luckily we can just like jump across over these gaps to just get to these bricks a little bit faster. And there's a lot of enemies here, they don't really do anything. Sometimes they can be in bad position like that. But that's fine. Yep, I thought that was that room, but I wasn't holding the correct direction. So one big change in the English version is that those dragon enemies move much faster. And it's actually really nice because they're kind of a pain to lure onto switches in the in the Japanese version with how slow they move. Okay, nope, wrong room. So basically I have to hit that guy and get him sitting on the switch. Now this room, we gotta bait this guy over here. And then, ooh, awesome. He cooperated. Sometimes he'll just stay in the bottom left corner for a long period of time. And there's an invisible enemy in here. Yeah, just take him down. Easy peasy. Switch to... Ooh. Yeah, I can't have her die. Okay, so I'm just gonna use a healing spell because I can't have Umi die at all because I need her to solve the next room's puzzle. So, okay, Mantis guy's in the way, just gonna have to kill him. Ooh. That's dangerous. Okay, so like I said, I need Umi alive, otherwise I have to restart this entire dungeon, and I don't want to do that. Okay, so now this guy's he's in a better position where we can just push him out of the way. And this guy's in a good position as well. It's nice when we can just push them out of the way and don't have to kill them, because sometimes they'll just get in a position where you have no choice. And then, okay, so now we have our Ice Arrows ability, which we only use here. Just to kill these guys, because that's the only way you can kill them. Okay, switch to her. Because Fu's the only one that can reliably kill these guys. Like, you can use any other character, but you have to, like, attack them in certain ways. Because they avoid magic damage, and, like, the arrow's, like, the only way to kill them consistently. And so now in this room, there's invisible walls. If you can attack them, and they'll cause them to appear like that. But, I mean, once you do it a few times, it's pretty obvious on where to go. Okay, so now we have appearing platforms. Oops. Jump button's not working. There we go. So, like, when you hit them normally, it just they just shamble like that. Ooh. There we go. So now there's a bunch of invisible enemies in this room I need to clear. But luckily I can just cast an area effect spell and generally get them all with 2 casts. Alright. And here we find Caldina again at the end of the dungeon, here to stop us. And we find out Ascot is really Alto, or Alto is really Ascot. And Ascot tries to reason with Caldina, but Caldina believes that we've brainwashed him. And Alcyone, being the trickster that she is, makes a shot at Caldina and makes Caldina think that Ascot has betrayed her. And Ascot saves our lives and loses his own. So now her brother is dead, and it's all our fault. So basically it's a lot similar to the last time we fought her, but now we can actually move around on the map. But the map's going to change a few times. So hopefully we can get good execution on the magic glitch. There we go. I couldn't do. I should have only did it there. I'd like panic. And so while she's doing that dance, we can't hurt her until she finishes it. There we go. And now we enter the final phase. So far, it went really well. That fight went really well. I actually did a run earlier this week where I died to this fight, which I was very impressed that I died.
Tina, you can join us if you want.
Damn it, how is this possible?
Caldina, listen. We could become really great friends. I know there's good in you. Oh my God! No!
Did you see who did that? It was him! Identify yourself!
I am the right hand of Sage Master Zagot, Enova.
Murderer! Why did you have to kill her?
Her time had run out. She had become a liability. Simple as that.
You bastard. You'll pay!
How very delightful. I have witnessed the power of the Magic Knights.
He's alive?
Yes, and that's quite unfortunate for you.
Ascot. Caldina.
Poor Ascot, poor Caldina. They finally seen the error in their ways, and the moment they do, they get killed off. But such is life. And of course, Alcyone is happy in her success. And now we get this all this cutscene stuff, and transition to Zagot's castle again, just for one line, or maybe 2 lines.
Bravo, Enova.
Now let's see what you're capable of, shall we?
Yes, my lord. Consider it done.
And so a new mysterious foe enters the ring. We don't know who it is, because they don't show. But what we do know is they'll end with more heartbreak. But now we can go to the next town, where a giant monster has been terrorizing the village by causing earthquakes. And one poor boy is out for revenge. So basically in this town, there's this boy named Nero. He's pissed off at this monster that's been causing earthquakes every night because it caused one of the bookshelves to fall in their house and break his mom's arm. And so now he's filled with anger and thoughts of revenge, and we have to talk him out of it. And he finds out we're the Magic Knights. And the father is so ecstatic for us talking to the boy, lets us stay the night at his inn for free. So there is currency in this game. You can use it to buy potions and health and mana upgrades, but with the way the route is now, there's no need for it. We used to buy a couple of potions, and then the magic glitch was discovered, and since it's consistent enough to do that, there's no reason to buy potions now. So now the giant monster is doing his walk. And of course, we can't catch a good night's sleep ever. And now Nero's gonna go and take his revenge. So this dungeon that's coming up is split into 2 parts. Basically, we have to get 2 medallions, one from each side. and we're going to be doing a death warp on each side to get back to the start of the dungeon, because dying is very safe in this game. There's no penalty for it other than a waste of time, and this is the one time where it's actually beneficial to us. So basically what we do is we take damage along the way, get the medallion at the end, die, and respawn at the beginning of the dungeon, and we can just go exit and enter the other side. In the US version, it's much easier to do that because enemies do like twice as much damage, thereabouts. And in the Japanese version, it takes a long time to die because enemies only do like 1 to 2 hits of damage. Ideally, I'm not going to take too much damage until I need to because it can get a little scary since every enemy does 3 to 4 damage. So you switch to her. So now we need her to just clear the leaves here. So I'm not taking as much damage as I should be. There we go. So there's like a tick tree, I guess I would call it. Basically, it's just a tree that spawns a bunch of ticks. And we can just run right past it, because like enemies don't get hitbox when you take damage. There we go. Ooh, that's a lot of lag, holy moly. So now we swim down here, go up a ladder, take some more hits. Let's see, there we go. And then we're basically just going to go back to that spot right there to finish off our death as soon as we get the medallion here. Let's see, I can kill her here. And then we'll go over there and die by the butterfly's hand. And then that's one thing I love about this game is you can die as much as you want and you won't lose progress. You just go back to the start of the dungeon. But like it makes the Japanese version way easy. Like when I first played this, I first played the English version. It was the first version I ever played. And I thought it was actually kind of a challenging game near the end, because everything did so much damage. Eventually I bought the Japanese version, so I was like, why not? See how different it is? And it's like almost like a completely different game with how easy it is. And then there's also a lot of weird bugs, like you can randomly restart cutscenes in the Japanese version. The game can randomly crash, which I've only ever had one. I think I've only ever had a crash twice in the US version. Whereas in the Japanese version, it can just randomly crash anywhere in the game. It's terrible like that. So now we're basically, this one's more maze-like. It's much more difficult to get through. We can avoid another tick tree, take some damage here. Alright, didn't take even more damage. Gonna kill these enemies. Okay. Whoa. Yeah, sometimes weird sound effect glitches happen in this area. And I'm not sure why. So this tree is like one of those tick trees again. Just damage boost right through it. Let's see, wait for that guy. Take damage here. Basically what you're supposed to do is set this tree on fire and then put it out, but we can just live with it. Okay. Whew. That was a little scary. If that guy killed me before I got that medallion, it would have had me start back at the beginning. But now we got both medallions, and we can just go back to the start and go and fight the boss. So this boss is kind of unique in that, regardless of what damage you do, it takes 15 hits to kill. So we just use our basic charged attack to take it down, because that's our most efficient form of damage. The boss doesn't stop. Like nothing. It just the invincibility frames don't stop. It just keeps going. So I'm not even sure how we knew to get these medallions. I'm not sure what story lore says that these medallions existed. Maybe an NPC somewhere says it, I'm not sure. But it turns out we're on the back of a giant turtle monster. And we have just cleared off the debris from its back. And it turns out in the story, at least the story of this game, that's why it was walking around causing earthquakes. It was just trying to shake off the brush that had become attached to his back. And somehow Nero's on his head. So this guy doesn't actually do that much damage, but like for whatever reason, like there's a very specific point on his mouth that does like 8 points of damage. It's crazy. But for the most part, he only does like 2 points of damage if he hits you. There we go. So we don't actually kill this guy. He's one of the few people we don't kill in this game. And Makona is going to help communicate for us. Because we always need a furry little mascot character that can do great things. And for whatever reason, Fu levels up. Well, look, we only kill people. We don't kill other animals, except for Innova, but that's a weird case. And you'll see later. Innova's basically he was like a beast that protected the palace and was given human form. And so now it's time to ride Air Turtle. And now we're finally back on track for the plot. We're entering Aria, the Sky Garden. Basically, here lies our second ancient machine, if you remember that from earlier. And we're going to get Fu's ancient machine here, but we'll have to do some side stuff first in order to get access to the dungeon where it is. Okay, so we're going to switch to Fu here just for position in a cutscene later, and that's the only reason. So we're going to go talk to the mayor of the town and see if we can get access to the Heaven's Labyrinth, which is where the ancient machine is stored. But he's not letting anybody in right now. He feels that someone's going to steal the statue or deface it somehow. So he's just going to throw us out of his mansion. And of course, the townspeople are upset. They want to go and pay their respects to the statue that protects their city. Oh, and that boy sometimes he gets in the way of the stairs, and we can't cross, and we can't get off from that way, so we have to go around. So now we're going to we're going to stay at another inn just to move the plot forward. This inn is much more quick. It's the only one time we get a full night's rest, actually. So now we're gonna go see the mayor again. And it turns out that the key to enter the labyrinth has been stolen, and since we asked about the key, we're automatically the culprits returning to the scene of the crime. And instead of throwing us out this time, he's gonna throw us into a dungeon. And now we're gonna have to do a little sneaking around a la Metal Gear. So even though they lock us in a cell, it's a very primitive lock that Fu can easily break through, because she's really good at block picking, apparently. So there's some cool tech I might be able to show off in this sneaking section. Is basically all the guards are on a room timer. Basically, when you enter the room is when they start, or room cycle. Sorry. So when you enter the room is when they start their cycles. And there's a certain way you can move to skip some cycles, and hopefully we can pull that off. It's like there's one cycle that's very tight, and we may or may not be able to pull it off. And if you get caught, you get put back here, and you get a lengthy cutscene to go with it for his punishment. So this cycle is skippable, but it's extremely difficult to skip. So we just, at least I just don't bother with it. And this guy, he just lines up perfectly on his cycle. And this guard, we have no choice but to wait for. There's like no way around it. But we can just skip the cycle of the other guard and go around him. Because, apparently they're deaf, because they can only see us. They can't hear. And then here's another guard that we have no choice but to wait for. He has, like, the longest vision of any guard. Like, most guards, you can just deal with them. Or you can be, like, on the edge of the screen and they won't see you, but this one will. Okay, hopefully my movement's good enough. Yes, I did it. So basically, it's a very tight window that you can skip that guard cycle and just go straight to the end. Ooh, that was scary. Because if you bump into a guard, you get caught, of course. And if he turns around, if I was just a moment too late, he would turn around and see me. Ooh, that was scary though. So now we go to the study here, where the key was stored, and find out that the culprit made it out through the chimney. And now we're covered in soot ourselves. So now we're gonna go talk to Ferio, who's somehow in town. And he's covered in soot. But he's also acting really strange. It turns out he's under a mind control spell by this mysterious woman who looks suspiciously like Alcyone. So now we're gonna go talk to Rafarga, who's somehow made it up here. Who knows how he made it up here. So he suggests that we go wait by the gate and see if anyone shows up. So now we just hang out and watch and do some people watching. And of course the girls are getting frustrated just by waiting. And then we got one old guy up here who just comes up and prays to the gate since he can't go pray to the statue itself. And dun dun dun, suddenly Ferio makes his appearance. Along with the mysterious hooded woman who looks suspiciously like Alcyone. Okay, so now we're going to skip the entirety of this dungeon. Basically, in this first screen that we enter on, if we jump into it just right, we can skip the entirety of the dungeon, because basically it'll load a different section of the dungeon if we jump into it just right, and we don't know why that happens, it just does. Let's see, and we got it first try, dang. So you notice that we can just walk on the walls and stuff. So basically this next area that we see here is a normal next area, but what we're seeing, what we're walking on is near the end of the dungeon. So we skip the entirety of the dungeon, and we skip getting Fu's final spell, which is called Protective Wind. Basically, it lets you levitate over gaps. And it's a pretty useless spell altogether. Like, it's only good for this dungeon and getting, like, some extra collectibles. But we can just skip it. We didn't skip it completely. And so now Fario under mind control is going to come and take a swipe at us.
Who are you?
Rafarga! Curses!
Rafarga. If you want this ragged urchin back alive, give me your Escudo weapons! You hag!
She's right. You are a warrior without honor.
Fair enough. But I still demand your Escudo weapons in exchange for this filthy waif.
You win.
That's more like it.
And dun dun dun, Alcyone has been revealed in her disguise.
I don't like your manner, witch.
Who are you?
There's honor only in a fair fight.
That's it! You're under mind control from the gods!
Rafarga, you saved us!
Pick up your weapons. Time to die.
So now Rafarga has turned against us, but not by his own free will. He's under mind control by Zagot. And it's such a powerful mind control that it's almost impossible to break.
Hikaru! What's wrong with my head?
Rafarga? Rafarga! Hikaru! Get away from the edge!
Bye-bye, Rafarga.
And then poor Rafarga falls to his death. He was a footnote in our life, and he won't be forgotten. So, as consolation, we fight a giant bird instead. So basically, I'm just doing magic spam to take it down, because this boss is, like, pretty much, does nothing. Ooh, I got 2 hits in. Nice. So sometimes with Hikaru's spell, you can get double hits in. It's very rare that it happens, but it's nice when it does. Okay, so now Alcyone comes in, causes him to go blinky. It doesn't really do anything. There we go. There we go. An easy peasy fight. Like, even without the magic glitch, it's a pretty easy fight. He doesn't do that much damage. So now we finally get our second ancient machine after helping up Fario. Turns out he's doing just fine. And, of course, Fu has trouble expressing her feelings for him. Alright, now we finally got our second giant robot. Or ancient machine. Which are also like spirit animals of some sort.
Curse the fortitude of Rafarga. His will was much stronger than we had anticipated. How do you wish to address this situation, dear lord?
Equip your armor and go, Innova. I pray you do not fail.
I shall do exactly as you desire, my liege.
Alright, so now Hunova is in the picture. And suddenly, a nice little elevator appears for us. And we lament over Rafarga is falling. So somehow Rafarga survived the fall, but he has lost his memory. He's just that bad of a dude. And the old guy who's been taking care of us tells us that there's a way to restore his memory. So we're gonna go do that. The Tree of Life we went to earlier had a leaf that we took and made into that we gave to the hospital to turn into an elixir, and they're gonna be nice enough to give us some. So we're just gonna use fast travel to go all the way to back to the Lyrie. And then we're gonna go see Athena, and she'll give us what we need to cure Rafarga's amnesia. There we go. So apparently they made a lot of the elixir, and also Athena catches on that we were the ones that got the leaf and not Abner. And now we can go back to the Forbidden Woods, or whatever it's called. Whispering Woods. And now we're going to give him the medicine. And he does have his memory back, but now he has a splitting headache. And he's just going to slowly walk outside the house, grasping his temples. And he's going to be a nice guy and wait for us to go outside before continuing his walk of pain. And it finds out that he's still under mind control. Because Zaygot's mind control is so powerful. And Alcyon's here now to try to take us down. And now poor Alcyon has been shot in the stomach by our own ice arrow. Now time to take down Rafarga. So, like, as long as he's not in frames, we can generally hit him. There's only one exception, is when he's casting a spell, we have to wait for him to open his eyes back up. Oh, did that a little too soon. There we go. There we go. And it also clears, like, the damaging stuff on the field, too, when we cast a spell. Makes it quite convenient. There we go. And so Rafarga turns red too somehow. Oh, did that a little too soon again. There we go. Alright, we have stopped Rafarga on his rampage of trying to kill us. But he's asking us to kill him because he can't stop the mind control that's invading his head.
I have grown tired of this charade. Say goodbye.
You murdered him in cold blood! You're pathetic.
And suddenly armor upgrade.
It seems as if your power has unexpectedly increased.
Sorry to be so much trouble, Hikaru. I didn't mean for it to turn out like this.
Rafarga! You have to hold on! Rafarga! You must lie still. Please don't die.
You must save dear Princess Emerald. It's your destiny.
Yeah, now someone else is dead. We've just been killing people over and over. And poor Alcyon's bleeding out.
My life runs from me, and yet you entertain another. Farewell, my love.
So that blonde lady, that's the princess that we're looking to save. And she's just having a casual conversation with her captor. And another volcano has erupted. And Hikaru hears her machine calling out to her. And then we finally get her. We're finally gonna get her final machine, Rayearth, which is the namesake of the series. But now Polyzoo Village is in shambles from the volcanic eruption. But it opens up a path for us. Yes, High Spirits gets it. He finally gets it. So there is a path over here that was previously closed off. Is now open now that the map has changed. So basically I'm doing a category called No Map Glitch. Basically there's a glitch that's found that was thought to be task only, but it's been proven to be done by a person. Where a series of very specific movements, you can do a thing called a map glitch, which gives you your small map sprites on the regular field. And if you do a series of specific movements while in that form, you can skip straight to the final dungeon from the first city. I'm turning this run down to like 15 to 20 minutes. So now here we see Hikaru's dog for the first time, well technically the third time actually. And we get her most powerful spell in the game, that's just simply called her Flash, which is the name of her dog. And it kills any boss in 3 hits. It is that powerful, but it costs 10 mana to use. So in normal gameplay, you can only cast it once per fight. Let's see. But thanks to the magic glitch, we can cast it as many times as we want, which trivializes 3 of the final boss fights. There we go. So we're gonna go up here, jump over here. Oh, darn it, my movement was bad. So if you run straight, which I wasn't for some reason, you can just run right past those boulders that are falling instead of having to go the long way around. There we go. Whoops. That's fine. Okay, perfect. Take this teleport over here. The other teleport takes us to a similar location, but there's a lot more lag by going that way. So we can just go to this one. And luckily by going fast enough, it just lines up all the platforms all together. Alright, and now we finally go into the chamber where our final machine is. But before we can get it, we have to prove our strength. And who better to prove our strength against than Alcyone, who has been following us once again while she bleeds out. And she's pretty pissed off that Zagot loves someone else, alluding to Princess Emerald, who he's fallen in love with, which is why he kidnapped her. So this fight's actually pretty tough casually, but like if you just know the magic glitch, if it will cast. There we go. Sometimes it's uncooperative, because you have to basically press them on the same exact frame and can't always have good execution on it. There we go. And just like that, trivializes this boss that normally has a lot of HP. And now she's dead and faded into dust. Or magic. However they fade away. And now we've entered what are we fighting for moment, because everyone around us is dying. And we finally get our third machine, Rayearth. And now we can finally take on Zagot. So this is the only fight in the game where we don't get our health restored after winning. It's very unusual like that. And I'm not sure if it's an oversight or intentional.
Master Zagot, I implore you, return me to my original form. The power of the Magic Knights can no longer be ignored. It is my duty to destroy them before they become powerful enough to threaten you. But to accomplish that, I must abandon this frail shell.
Innova, in times past, you have served as guardian and gatekeeper of Emerald's castle.
Yes, but I have accomplished nothing apart from your nourishing grace.
If you choose to return to your beastly form as gatekeeper, you shall never be able to return to this present form again. Your wisdom and beauty will perish.
A fitting price, my liege. Time spent in your service is the reward of 1,000 lifetimes, sire. Don't you see? Only by destroying those that seek to thwart your glorious plan can I fulfill my destiny, Lord. I beg for your blessing, sire.
Innova.
So basically, Innova's in love with Zagot, but it's a one-way street. Hey, Zagot's a great guy. Who wouldn't love him? As we find out soon enough, he basically kidnapped the princess to free her from her shackles of keeping peace in Sephiroth with her magic. This is basically, thought is magic in this game, and the Princess Emerald has the most powerful thought magic in the game, or in the world of Sephiroth, in the game. And she literally uses that to keep Sephiroth at peace. And Zagot falling in love with Emerald, and Emerald falling in love in return, wanted to save her from this. Also, a little glitch here. Normally that chair behind her is supposed to be turned around the other way and empty, but because we never actually came to this area before this point in the game, We never triggered the cutscene that has that chair turn around. And so, basically, to free Princess Emerald from this, he imprisoned her. But there was also a prophecy foretold that would the Magic Knights would be summoned from another world to free Princess Emerald from her binds. But there's more to it than that, but only a few people actually know what's going on. And one of them got turned to stone at the beginning of the game. And now we're going to go see him for the very first time. We've seen him in other parts of the game in tutorials and, like, through Makona's eye or whatever. But he was turned to stone at the beginning of the game thanks to Zagot's magic. And the only way to free him from the turning to stone is to kill Zagot. But now Anova has come to stop us as a final showdown. And he turns into his beastly form. And it turns out he's pretty dang powerful. So it also turns out this guy has weird health. Basically, he has 120 health, but when he gets down to like about 70 health, it resets back to 120, so effectively giving him 170 health. But because we have the flash magic, we can just kill him in 3 hits regardless. Because the magic's kind of weird, like it does like almost no damage at first, and then it does a ton of damage after that. So, and he also has inconsistent invincibility frames. So sometimes they last a while, and sometimes they don't last long at all. It's like the only boss in the game that's like that as far as I know. There we go. And just like that, he's been taken down. And now, all the friends that we've made along the way are coming to cheer us on to take on Zagot. And with the power of friendship, we will defeat him. Not their friendship, of course, but our own. And of course, here we get the choice of whether or not to continue, because once we continue that point, there's no going back. This is basically the point of no return. And so in true anime fashion, we summon our giant robots. And because we summoned all 3 robots at the same exact time, it breaks the barrier to Zagot's palace. Or the barrier that was enshrouding it. now we're entering our ancient machine through teleportation. Oh yeah, and if you notice, Fu's no longer wearing her glasses. For whatever reason, when she gets her final armor upgrade, she no longer needs her glasses, but they never really talk about it, it just kind of happens. No capes. And so with all three of their attacks, they break the barrier to enter Zagot's castle. And now we go on to our final series of fights, where we're actually going to have a genre change at some point. And now we finally fight Zagot, who's like, why does the princess pray for peace? We don't need her to do that. So basically, you can only hit him when he's not glowing. And he'll glow a lot. But like in between movements, he won't glow. And if we time our magic spells just right, then we can kill him fairly quickly. And just like that, he's down. A very difficult fight turned to nothing. And now he summons his own giant robot, because of course he has one. And it's bigger than ours.
If you won't accept defeat, we shall crush you completely. Window!
Oh dang, where's my giant robot? High Spirits gets one, but I don't. So now we're in a poor man shmup. Where it's actually kind of interesting. Hikaru's like single hit attack is the most damaging, but Fu's attack damage is cumulative. So basically, the more arrows that hits, the more damage is done. And we can only hit him during certain times. Let's see. Nope, no bees. And one of his favorite moves is to spawn bees. So hopefully, the less he spawns it, the better. No bees, good. Although I'm taking a lot more damage than I would like. Bees. Yep. Eventually, bees becomes one of his favorite moves. But surprisingly, he's being good on him. He's being really generous. There we go. So if you consistently land every single of Fu's arrows, you can kill him as little as I believe 5 hits. Whereas I think that was probably about 8 hits there. Whereas like normally it takes about between 20 and 30 hits if you don't use Fu's attacks like that.
You must forgive me, dear Emerald.
And now we've finally taken down the evils they got. All in the world is saved, or so we think. And it turns out there's more to it than that. So now she's pretty upset that we killed Zagot.
Because Princess Emerald loves Zegot deeply, she placed Sephiroth at risk of complete annihilation. Knowing she had betrayed a sacred trust, Emerald felt ashamed and sought to punish herself. She therefore summoned you, the Magic Knights, from your world, because only ones called from outside her domain could defeat Princess Emerald, the cornerstone of Sephiroth.
So yeah, now we have to kill the princess that we spent the entire game trying to save.
I can never forgive those who have slain my one true love. Your fate has been sealed.
And of course she has a robot too, a pretty dang big robot. And of course Princess Emerald's magic is what binds us to this world, so we have to kill her if we want to get back home. And now we enter a mock fight where we can't do anything, and we just get taken down instantly. What's interesting though is you can soft lock the game here. If you cast your magic spell at the right time, you'll become immune to damage just long enough to avoid that damage attack, and you'll just be soft locked in that fight. I've had that happen once.
Mokona, get out of here! It's too dangerous! Clef, how will we ever defeat Emerald's machine? It's too powerful!
Magic Knights, don't worry. Now is the time to unleash the power you have nurtured since your arrival in Sephiroth. Demonstrate the power of your fierce will and conviction. If you believe in yourselves, the strength of your machines can overcome any and all obstacles in your path. Call forth your power, Magic Knights.
The power of our will. The power to save Sephiroth.
And look, Fu's no longer wearing glasses.
We will have the strength to finish our mission.
And now with our powers combined, we become a super giant robot. With a claw arm. So now this fight's interesting. Basically, she has several hitboxes, and the only one that really matters is her head. Because you can destroy other body parts, but the head's the only one that matters. And also, she has a very set pattern on her attacks. So we can just like stay close to her head and just take her out. And move just to avoid attacks. See, I'm playing it a little safe here. Excellent. Okay, and time. Sorry for forgetting to mention it earlier.
Excellent work, fair Magic Knights.
But Clef, have we really done the right thing? I mean...
Don't despair, for you see, the outcome is exactly as Emerald had planned. And at last, your destiny is fulfilled.
Princess Emerald!
Hikaru, Umi, and Fu, you have fulfilled all that was asked of you. Remember this, no matter where you go, the strength of your mind and spirit is the most powerful magic of all.
But Emerald!
So now we're back at Tokyo Tower where we left off, where we death warped out of the game, and with our little Escudo that we never actually got. So that's Magic Knight Rayearth for the Sega Saturn. Thank you so much for having me on RPGchick-a-thon, High Spirits. It's wonderful to show off this game with all the new tricks, skips, and glitches.